I'm just going to fly straight into it tonight. Lots of things to get through, but basically we're fronting this as a bit of a Manchester United fan therapy session. Let it all out, get everything off your chest, because if you're like me, last night I couldn't sleep. I was really frustrated with Manchester United, and I think we just need to let everything out, those little bugbears that are bothering you. First of all, if you're watching us live, do get commenting up there. We'll read some out. I haven't even told the guests that's what we want as well. So, and if you're not watching live, comment below, and we'll reply to you on that. My big bugbear at the moment is Fellaini. I've kept quiet for a long, long time, but my bugbear with it is that he's Louis van Gaal's plan B option every single time. Half time against Arsenal, 3-0 down. Fellaini's the attacking option. Same again against Palace yesterday. Comes on at 70 minutes. Same again in the 0-0 game against City. He comes on. I mean, Fellaini, whatever you think about him, he's just not a Manchester United player as far as I'm concerned, in the sense of the way we've always played. And it's a bit like you're in a World Championship boxing match, and you get a bit tired, so you bring your mum on with her 80s perm. Absolutely ineffective and not what I want to see in a United shirt. And it frustrates me. I know I'm not Louis van Gaal out, or I'm not Louis van Gaal out at all. I'm going to touch on that in a moment, but I've let it out. That's what's frustrating me at the moment. We've got so much talent in our team, and every time last season we left him off the hook and said when he's got a summer to sign people it will change, but it's happening again this season. The Rooney thing's frustrating. I'm sure we'll be touching on that, but I'm really frustrated that at half time against Arsenal it's Fellaini, 70 minutes against Palace it's Fellaini. I'm fed up of it. It's not what I want to see, and I'm really frustrated by it. But Kev, I'll go to you first. Obviously, tell us what you're frustrated about, but we better touch on Palace yesterday. I mean, what were your thoughts on that? A lot of people, the Louis van Gaal army is gathering pace. I'm certainly not going to be the Mel Gibson Braveheart rallying the troops on it. I'm not at that stage at all. But I do understand why some people are.
Yeah, you can fully understand. You just have to watch that game yesterday. As an attacking force, just absolutely non-existent. And I think like a lot of supporters, I'm just banging my head against a brick wall every week. I mean, we're just so inconsistent. It is a joke. We get absolutely turned over against Arsenal, and for me, it was Van Gaal and the fact that he plays Schneiderlin and Carrick together in that midfield. We got overrun, and in 20 minutes we lost that game. And then the next week we turn up against Everton and blow them away 3-0. And then obviously midweek we've had Middlesbrough. We go out for playing the exact type of football that we played yesterday at Sellers Park. And for me, it's awful to watch. It's embarrassing as a United fan because we're just not used to it. Call me spoiled, call me whatever you want. For me, watching that yesterday, when I switched off after watching that match yesterday, I was like, no, I've had enough of the style of football. I don't know what the philosophy is. He's been in charge. This is his second season. And I don't understand what the philosophy is. Now, I know a lot of people pick up on this channel and they'll say it's negative and that. I'll give you a few positives, and there isn't many. But one thing I will say is all good teams, all very good teams, are built on a foundation of having a good back four. And the one thing I will say about Van Gaal is at the back, yesterday we were suspect a couple of times, but I think he's got that back four unit quite solid. I know we've got the best keeper in the world, and that's always going to help. But I think the back four, he's bringing the best out of Chris Smalling. And in the summer, we were all crying out for a defender, Otamendi. We have to sign Ramos. We have to do this. He's gone in with them four defenders, and defensively we do look solid. Now, the thing that's worrying me is the attacking in the final third of the field. And every week, like I just said before, I'm banging my head against the wall because Martial started 4 games up front for United and scored 4 goals. And for some reason, he's now stuck him out on the left, and he's played 4 games out on the left, hasn't scored a goal. Now, Louis van Gaal is mad into his statistics. Take that into account, mate, and have a look at that, because that, for me, and every United fan must have seen it yesterday, play Martial up top, because at the minute, it's just not happening for Wayne Rooney.
No, I totally agree with you, Kev. I mean, Samuel says in the comments box there, we have the squad to win the league if it wasn't for Louis van Gaal, and you're spot on. I think I tweeted it yesterday as well. If Martial had played up front when Rooney's been playing up front and not been moved to the left, we'd have another 6 or 7 points. I think it's ridiculous. It's and I've got to read this out. At Ormston Lord MUFC said it to me before the show. Louis van Gaal will finish Rooney, or Rooney will finish Louis van Gaal, and I do think there's a lot of truth in that, because I think Rooney at number 9. I know there's a load of people saying it's Louis van Gaal's fault today. It's not Rooney's fault. What can he do? He's not getting the ball, because they're listening to the Scholes quote, which I believe I actually back up Scholes, but I don't back up what he's saying about Rooney. 44 times Wayne Rooney had the ball yesterday, given to him as a number 9. Absolutely abysmal. I know Martial played him through, didn't he? Alex, I hope your audio's working, because I'm feeding you in here. Like Martial tried to feed Rooney in, but apparently it was too hard for him to control. Rubbish. Watch it back. Any top forward should control that. You're through. You're one-on-one. You should score. It's embarrassing. There was another opportunity at the end where he crossed it once. It came back to him from Rojo. Everyone's in the box. Even the big lump Fellaini's in the box, and Rooney decides to do a half-hearted shot from 30 yards out, which, to be honest, would have to be an absolute bullet in the top corner, when Rooney probably couldn't score from 5 yards out at the moment. So I do empathise with Louis van Gaal a little bit, because I think he also has said that Gomez at Bayern Munich used to get 14 touches a game and had score a goal a game. So I think he's indicating that Rooney's the problem. There was the rumour that Rooney was going to be dropped yesterday morning. It hasn't happened. It wasn't going to be my top pick yet, but I will feed this into you, Alex. A lot of fans on the topic that I put out on the tweet out think that Louis van Gaal is either forbidden or scared to drop Rooney.
Is it working?
Yep.
Oh, it is. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, I think personally that I saw a picture of it when Rooney first got to that ball, when he first got it, and Hennessy making the run, and I just don't even see how it's physically possible that Hennessy beat him to the ball. It's like, if that was Martial, I know we keep saying if that was Martial, he'd have scored it, but he definitely would have, and I think any top striker would have scored it. But I think we have to accept now that it's just where we can accommodate Rooney into the team, because he's never ever going to get dropped. And I know people will like cry and complain because it'll be Herrera that's dropped, or Mata that's dropped, or someone along those lines, or maybe even Martial, but hopefully not. But I think if we have to accommodate him into the team, I think it's just going to have to be at number 10. I don't want him at number 10 because I think Herrera's a better 10. I think Mata's a better 10. But if we're going to have to slot him in somewhere, just chuck him anywhere. We need someone to be the striker. Like I loved saying it last season, or didn't love it, but kept saying it, that QPR were created more chance than us. And I think now, according to Squawker, if all Aston Villa need to do is create 2 chances against Tottenham tomorrow, and that means if they do that, that means we've created less chances than every other team in the league. So likes of Bournemouth are more creative than us, Watford, Norwich. We're Manchester United. People can defend it all they want and everything, but it isn't acceptable that a team that we've spent under Van Gaal like over £200 million, and to have less chances created than Bournemouth is absolutely ridiculous. It is like what Kev said, our defence is very solid, but I'm starting to think that is at the sacrifice of the attack. But I think we do have the players, like you said, to win the league. But what really worries me more than anything is when the press were asking him, oh, do you think Manchester United are boring? Do you think they take risks? He said we take a lot of risks and that we're really entertaining, and that if we weren't entertaining, we wouldn't be filling the stadium up, which I just find very, very worrying, that he doesn't seem to think there's a problem. And also that he said that he doesn't think that, he doesn't know yet Martial's proper position.
Yeah, I saw that. I was absolutely baffled. I mean, Conrad says it's not fear that Louis van Gaal won't drop Rooney. It's in the contract, 100% sure. We've sort of hinted on that for the last 12 months, and horrific if that's true. And if it is true, it needs to come out, because it's absolutely abysmal. I don't like Moyes. I've never liked Moyes. Never wanted him at the club. Like Fellaini, never wanted them at the club, and I'll always say that. But that Moyes, one of the worst things Moyes did, apart from taking us from champions to 7th, was that contract for Rooney. Didn't need to be done. 300 grand a week, 200 grand didn't need to be offered, and it has been an absolute freeze block round our neck. It's sinking us at the moment, and I totally agree with what Billy said. It's going to be the end of Louis van Gaal, it's going to be the end of Rooney, and I know which I prefer at the moment. Although what I would say, we're always balanced on this channel. I love Herrera, but he was worse than Rooney yesterday, and Rooney was pretty bad, so I would agree with that. But quickly on the defence, just before I go to you, Dermot, what Alex and Kev were saying there, some people have been throwing this out as well. Oh, we're defensively good, all we need to do is start scoring goals and we'll be fine. Did you watch the match yesterday? Palace had some good to half chances, but there was a chance for Cabaye where he's totally unmarked and he misses the ball, and it should have been any day of the week that should have been a goal, and we wouldn't have come back into the game. So a point was actually a good point yesterday, because Palace deserved the win, and I don't know what's happened to Darmian and Mata. But your thoughts, Dermot, we finally get there. I mean, what's frustrating you, and do you feel a bit like it's a bit of a missed opportunity at the moment with this squad? Because I certainly think we could be doing better when you look at Arsenal.
I think the thing that's probably frustrating me most is that the answer, I think, for everyone is so obvious. Like we said, you know, the goalkeeper sorted. We can't complain about the defence at all, and even the backup defenders like Jones, Rojo will be back up for sure, and Valencia were very strong in the back line and midfield, and it's so obvious what we should be doing in the forward line. And it's just when you see the play is so slow. So it is just unbelievably frustrating. I'm so frustrated I can't even talk about it properly.
Yeah,
but I think we should all see that like Martial should be up front, and Rooney should be on the bench, and like we have the players to score lots of goals, and it's just unbelievably frustrating. The answer is so obvious for everyone to see.
I think it is, and I think it is really hard to. We had somebody on Thursday who basically, Wayne Rooney, you say, you know, people have said Louis van Gaal. I think it was one of your tweets actually, Kev. So if I get it wrong, please say it, because it is quite funny. Something along the lines of if Wayne Rooney shagged Louis van Gaal's wife and sent him the video of it, it'd still be the first name on the team sheet, and I'm sure that's the truth. But like Tell on Thursday, I think, you know, Tell would probably let Rooney do anything to him, and he'd still say it was fantastic. I mean, I love that loyalty. You know, no issue with it at all. But there comes a line that Louis van Gaal picks the team, and we don't know what goes on behind closed doors, but it's just weird that Rooney keeps playing when we all know Martial should play. But we've got to focus on Louis van Gaal a bit, because there is, I put it out there today, there is a growing Louis van Gaal out theme amongst Man United fans who, the more reasoned approach to it is that he doesn't play good football, and he's not going to turn it round. I'm not Louis van Gaal out. I think if he can get us top four, who else is available at the moment? We're halfway through a season. No, we're not quite halfway, but it's a difficult time to do it. Klopp might have been an opportunity, but we've missed out on that. But my theory on it is that I think there's a comment here I wanted to read before I come to you, Kev. Karl-Heinz Rummenigge said this in April 2011, so roughly 2 years before we employed him. Football should be enjoyable, but there has been nothing enjoyable about football at FC Bayern for a while now, and that was when they sacked Louis van Gaal. At AZ Alkmaar, I think it was, played very much the way he's playing with Manchester United now. They were underdogs, and that's how they won the league, and they played very similar to now, tight, boring football. At Holland, we saw him in the World Cup last year, tight, boring football. Got sacked from Bayern Munich very recently, tight, boring football. This is what I'm trying to defend Louis van Gaal from. He's got a very good history of bringing through the youth, getting rid of the deadwood. I applaud him for that. Fantastic. Been saying it for weeks. But what do people expect from Louis van Gaal? This team that he had at Barcelona, you know, 2 decades ago. He's not been doing that for about 10 years. He doesn't play that way. I don't know why people think Louis van Gaal was going to come to Manchester United and turn us into this cavalier type of football. It's not Louis van Gaal's way. And I think part of that blame has to go with the board who picked Moyes, which was ridiculous, and picking Louis van Gaal. As I said on Friday night, we needed a surgeon after Alex Ferguson. We got a clown in Moyes. And after the clown, we needed a magician, and we got a mathematician. There's nothing wrong with a mathematician, but he ain't going to be a magician, is he? What's your thoughts, Kev? Louis van Gaal in or out?
No, well, obviously in. It's the thing that gets me on Twitter. It's like you start having a conversation with somebody, and the moment you start doubting a manager, or you give your opinion and say, I'm not happy with the style of football, they always throw this counter-argument back. It sort of just ends everything, and they say, get behind the manager and support the team. And I'm like, well, I'm behind the manager and I support the team. Of course I am. It's an absolutely ridiculous comment to come back with. Happens all the time. It's like when you debate with a rival fan and they say, the minute they come under a bit of pressure, you fire a few questions at them. You know, you're obsessed. Right, all right, I'm obsessed. You know, it's just petty, stupid stuff. The fact we're debating this tonight, and the fact that anyone debates it on social media or anything, is because we are concerned. I've always said that Van Gaal, for me, he builds a club up, and for me, he's put it in at the back line. I've just said defensively, we're a unit. But again, I think I said it before Van Gaal come in. Look at, like you just touched on there, the Dutch squad, Holland. For me, they totally overachieved in the World Cup. Nobody expects them to go that far. Yeah, they got a bit of a freakish result against Spain, and everyone thought Louis van Gaal was brilliant. But if you look at any of the other matches, he had some of the best players in the world at his disposal. He had Iron Robin, and look what he did to him. They were a defensive, counter-attacking team. We're not even a counter-attacking team at the minute. We're not creating any chances. And yeah, I obviously, I keep playing this card and I keep saying it. I keep thinking, all we need to do now is click in the final third, and that's the final piece of the jigsaw. But how long can it go on? Every week I'm saying it and hoping for it. At what stage do you give up and just think, do you know what? He's not the man to do it. And like you just mentioned at Bayern Munich, maybe somebody else can come in and give fresh ideas and just bring the team onto a new level. You touch on Rooney there as well. Exactly the same thing. He's just wasted at the moment. I think somebody made the point the other day. I can't remember the Twitter name who it was, but I did have a laugh when it said it. A point at Palace wasn't a bad result when we were playing with 10 men. And people, I know, I've never spoken to Tal, I've tweeted him and that. I know he comes on this show and he defends Rooney. But again, I just got to ask the question, how long can it go on for? And how long can a player like Wayne Rooney stay in the United squad? For me, no player is bigger than the club. And Sir Alex Ferguson wouldn't have had this. He would have had Rooney sat in the standard. For performance-wise, he needs a kick up the arse. And he's not getting that at the minute. He's collecting his 350 grand a week. He wears that captain's armband and he goes out. He needs to rediscover his form. Again, banging my head against the wall. I've said it many a times before.
No, and it's interesting because I think we both started off saying Rooney will come good. I've said it on Thursday. Alex said he's passed it, and to be honest, at the moment he's been proved right. And you know, I did say Rooney would come good, and I think Kev did as well. But there becomes a point, you know, we're not saying you're not right all the time, and this history would suggest that Rooney would come good. But aboard, I mean, the thing like somebody said to me today, and it's exactly right about Rooney. He's our captain. I mean, people have forgotten that. I never thought he was a very good captain anyway, but he's no captain. He can't even play his own game, let alone lead the team. He's just, it is unbelievable actually that he's still in the starting team and he's still given the captain's armband, because he's an absolute disgrace. And I hate to say that about somebody that I have backed and thought would come good, but the club's bigger than anybody, like Kev says, and you've got to be like that. Some people are saying about Giggs being the next manager, and I think Feed Khabib has come out with a very good point, which I've been saying. Watch documentaries where Giggs speaks. He's got no personality. All great managers have personality. That was my concern about Giggs. He doesn't seem to have much of a personality, and you know. But I do come back, Alex, to the fact that I think Moyes was a terrible appointment for Manchester United, and I just don't. I could, you know, people say this, and it's really true. If the fans can pick the right 11, why can't the man who's being paid to manage our club pick the right 11? And it's the same for the board. If we can all say that Moyes is just was never the right fit for Manchester United based on experience, the way he plays, etc. Louis van Gaal as well. The warning signs were there. He's not Klopp. He's not Pep. He's not that sort of player. Like Kev says, he overachieved with Holland. They were so frustrating to watch in the World Cup, considering they had Iron Robin. They were just a very boring team to watch. You know, they hit Spain on the counter-attack for 3 goals and beat them 3-0. Same at AZ Alkmaar, same at Bayern Munich. That's why he's got the sack. I mean, it is no surprise. I do feel sorry for Louis van Gaal, because he's been employed to come and do this job, and then he's been expected to do something that he doesn't do.
Yeah, with Holland, I think he was just trying to rely on like a little bit of Robben magic, which is what we've been having to do with Martial. That when we weren't creating chances, when he was up front, he was just creating something out of nothing. Which is, I was saying last season that because of how we play, that I said that I used like Suarez as an example. Obviously, I knew we wouldn't sign Suarez, but I meant a striker that could create something out of nothing, because we're just not like creating any chances. But then we now have Martial, he was on like 4 goals in 4 games, and then for some ridiculous reason, unbeknownst to everyone, he drops him and puts in a striker that before the Everton game hadn't scored an away goal in over a year. It's just, I just don't see the logic in it. It's just absolutely ridiculous. But we've touched on it before with managers, and you were saying about Moyes. I think it did set the club back a very long time. And I think one of the big things is that a lot of journalists have mentioned it, and it has to be true, is that Rooney has something in his contract that he can't be dropped and that he has to keep getting played. It's the only explanation. I know what you said about Mario Gomez and stuff, and how you only have to touch the ball, like, 16 times or something he said, but he was scoring every game. But Mario Gomez obviously has a lot better movement than Rooney does, because I see so many games where Smalling is further forward than Rooney, and it's just. And then like that game, I can't remember who it was against, where Rojo put in this beautiful ball into the middle, and there was just no one there because Rooney was meant to be the striker in the middle, and he was like all the way back at the halfway line, probably knowing him. Whereas Martial is actually making runs and stuff, and Rooney just doesn't even bother to make the runs. But in terms of the manager, yeah, Moyes was awful and sets back. Van Gaal, it might just be, we might see what he's done with Bayern and Barca, although I've seen people dispute that he even did build up Barca, but hopefully he sets the ground foundations. He has, give him credit though, I know he has spent a lot of money, but I think like the signings he's made, he has built a good team, especially Martial, obviously.
Yeah, live wired. I'm reading the comments and I always try to read a few out. Rooney looks overweight, poor touch, poor in there, and has no pace. He's complete garbage. I think that overweight thing's true. I saw him on Wednesday night on the touchline. He just doesn't look great at all. And Rick Worley's sort of touching on this, which is what I wanted to say as well. You know, we're 4 points off the top, we're 4 points ahead of Liverpool. The chances record, you know, bottom of the table basically for chances created, and we're 4 points off the top. So there's definitely potential there, but it's whether he's going to adhere to what everybody thinks and get rid of Rooney out of the team. And touching on what Alex says there, if it's in his contract, I am physically sick with that. It goes back to what Kev says there. Manchester United are bigger than any player. Why are we letting Wayne Rooney, who's basically crapped on the club twice in the past anyway, Sir Alex Ferguson, the best manager we've ever had, was going to get rid of him? Why is Woodward allowed a contract to happen where somebody is undroppable? I cannot comprehend that, and if that is true, it needs to come out, because it's an absolute disgrace. And I would be up there with the red and gold flags striking, because I really would. I think it's absolutely appalling. I don't know what you think, Dermot, but what I wanted to say when I was coming to you, I did have a topic, was that Lou Van Gaal, for me, I think Lou Van Gaal indefinitely until the summer. Let him get his top four, even if it's for the next 2 seasons, because I can't really see anybody else's out there. And the club has been in a bad place because of Moyes, and why go through another change? But also, we have got a bunch of winnable games now, and I think we might be on the tide of the wave, really, and I think we might pick up some points in the next few games.
I suppose just to say about Rooney, I said in the comment box the other night, I honestly don't see why it's such a big deal if it's in his contract. I mean, what is he going to say? I'm off, right, off with you. You know, he hasn't played well in months, so or even a year. So it'd nearly be a blessing in disguise if he did go. So, you know, if he wants to kick up a tantrum, off with you. But definitely with Van Gaal, there's absolutely no sense in sacking him now. You know, we've had enough disruption with Moyes, and I think the club prides itself on having long-standing managers like Sir Alex and so on. I'd give him to the end of next season, or the end of this season even, and just see where we are, see has his style of play changed, because I don't think any of the fans would want to go through another season like this, even if we did get second or third, and especially if managers like Pep Guardiola and Carlo Ancelotti are around. I think it'd be madness to go into another season with this, but definitely for the moment we might as well stick with it.
Yeah, and well, what I would say about that is I think Lou Van Gaal is going to have to go as bad as Moyes results-wise in epic proportions, really, because it was bad under Moyes. Otherwise, Van Gaal will stay at Manchester United as long as he wants to, a bit like Rooney now, because Woodward's hanging by the thinnest of threads. It wasn't a very good summer. I don't care what people say. It wasn't a very good summer. We got rid of a lot of dead wood, but we should have definitely bought a centre-back. We should have got a replacement for Robin Van Persie. We have got a very thin squad. I mean, Phil Jones, where's he gone again? Injured. We've said on this show so many times, Phil Jones played quite well a couple of weeks ago against Everton. Now needs to have 10 games in a row at least and do what Chris Smalling's done. Within 2 games, he does what Jones does. He's out injured. He's a waste of space. Really, why did we give him a contract in the summer? Another indication of Woodward's bad management. And I don't think, Kev, that Woodward will sack Lou Van Gaal next year if we finish 4th again and play rubbish football all season, because I think it reflects badly on him and he'll be putting his own neck on the chopping line. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
I agree. For me, as sad as I've always said it, United, to them clowns in charge, the Glazers, is a cash cow, and it's a business. And all these stupid deals that they're striking it up every week, United have to be in that top 4. And I know that they've put money into transfer fees. I'm certainly not going to say into the club, because they've never done that. I've always said they bought it with money, fake money that they never had. It was just numbers. And United ultimately have brought in Louis van Gaal, who I'm not going to say he's a yes man, but he's coming on a 3-year contract. United aren't looking long term. Think about the contract David Moyes got. They were obviously looking long term and thinking David Moyes can do this. But the moment he didn't get in the Champions League, he was gone. He was a goner, and United's arses went because they knew this Adidas deal was coming in. They needed somebody short term. There wasn't any managers out there. Mourinho had gone to Chelsea, and the manager merry-go-round, they missed out. If they wanted to go short term, let's win a couple of trophies in 3 or 4 years. They brought Van Gaal in. He's already stated he's not going to be there beyond 3 years. So to me, it makes no difference if he goes this summer or next summer. If the right man is available this summer, what difference does it make? Do you keep Louis van Gaal in charge for another season of crap football, basically, non-existent attacking football, 1 or 2 shots on target, draw a load of games, or do you go for the right man that could be available, like, say, I don't know, Carlo Ancelotti, someone who could install a really good style of attacking football, and somebody who would be prepared to sign, let's say, a 5-year contract, somebody who we know we're going to have for 5 years. For me, it's a bit of a joke anyway. I don't know how Ed Woodward has got Louis van Gaal in on a 3-year contract. I think it's an absolute nonsense as a Manchester United manager, a team or a club that's been built on managers having. I know we were blessed with Sir Alex Ferguson, but yeah, just a manager with a bit of longevity, and we've just not got that with Louis van Gaal. This second season is going to skip away, and yeah, I think the Glazers have just thought this is an absolute safe option. This is a manager who can come in. Bit of authority, throw his weight around, and as long as they get top 4, that fits in with the Adidas thing. Sponsors are happy, and them clowns at the top are happy. The Glazers.
It's an interesting point, Kev. I mean, Brozef Luca says Ancelotti there. Well, Ancelotti's available now. Pep Guardiola is basically available now. He'll be going in May. I'll tell you what's going to happen. We're going to have Van Gaal for another 2 seasons, so we'll miss the boat again. And it sticks. I like this saying. It sticks in my claw a bit because we have had Sir Alex Ferguson recently come out and say basically we ended up with Moyes because we couldn't get Klopp because of his contract. We couldn't get Ancelotti, who was going to Madrid. We couldn't get Mourinho, who's going to Chelsea. Well, man, I mean, that's just such a defeatist attitude, and it just emphasises that Manchester United is a business run by profit lines, because we're Manchester United. I don't care if someone's signed a new contract. I don't care if someone's going to Real Madrid. If Manchester United knocks on Jose Mourinho's door, I'm not saying we should have got him, but just using him as an example, and said, there's £30 million a year, come and turn Manchester United around. He's not going to go, wow, I want to go to Chelsea. He's going to come to Manchester United, but we don't do that. We don't do that. This rubbish that we go out and make a big signing every summer. Could have got Bale last summer if we had that approach. It doesn't happen. Di Maria was a cut-price star. Memphis is a potential star. Martial's a potential star. Schweinsteiger's at the end of his career. Schneiderlin's a Premier League class player. We don't go out and buy the creme de la creme, and we don't go out and get the creme de la creme managers, and that is the problem with the way Manchester United are run at the moment. Just want to keep it in the middle, in the reality for a moment, Alex, because people have been mentioning this. Mata, Darmian, Carrick. I mean, what is going on with some of our players at the moment? I mean, Rooney gets a lot of bad press, but Carrick, we talked about a bit on Thursday, so we won't want to dwell on that too much. I think he should be in the team. He's just not getting a look in. Fellaini now comes on for Schweinsteiger. But Darmian is unrecognisable from the first month of the season, where he looked like one of the best defenders in the world. We saw him on tour, looked absolutely fantastic. Mata has gone within himself. There's a lot of players that are just not up to it at the moment.
With Carrick, I think that he hasn't been in that good form this season, is mainly because of his age. It's always going to happen eventually, but I think he won't be able to get in the team because Schweinsteiger and Schneiderlin, in my opinion, are currently better. With Darmian, I said, I think even on the show before the game, I'm really worried about what Balassi and Zaha would do to him, because he's struggled against Tadic and struggled against Alexis, and then shock, we went against Palace and he struggled against Balassi and Zaha.
Sorry to interrupt, this is the thing I was going to say, he's not a slow player. And he just looks like a player. I think a few games ago, before all this, he got hooked off at half time. It's a bit like McNair, isn't it? His confidence looks shot.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It has to be his confidence, because he was defending, like you said, brilliantly, and then once Tadic ruined him and he got hooked at half time. And I'm not. We said this last season. I think it was against Southampton as well, that we weren't a big fan of McNair getting subbed off at half time. I know it's needed maybe, but I think Memphis has had the same problem and happened to Matter as well. But this is the thing that pisses me off about Rooney, is that it keeps happening to all these players and he never gets hooked up at half time. But it just can't. I think it is a confidence issue with Darmian, because you don't go from, like, he was defending brilliantly, and then I can't even think that at the start of the season, if we came up against any fast, tricky wingers, which could have been the problem, maybe that, but it just seems like every single time he comes up against a winger with a bit of skill, they just seem to ruin him. And then, like, Valencia came on and he's done really well when he's come on, and then the other day Ashley Young came on and Ashley Young did brilliantly, like far better than Darmian, which is just really weird. But I think it just has to be a confidence issue. I can't think of what else it can be, because he's not a bad defender. It starts for Italy. He was, like, voted in the Serie A Team of the Year, so he's not a bad player. I just don't know. And see McLean saying Arsenal exposed Darmian. He was exposed before the Arsenal game because Tadic exposed him when we played Southampton.
I think you're right. I think the hypocrisy bites with a few Manchester United fans, because we saw it with McNair, and I think it was half an hour he was pulled off against Southampton. Don't get rude, people, about pulled off. But the Darmian, I feel sorry for Darmian because I like him. I think he reminds me of Herrera when we signed him. He's got a bit of a cult sort of status with the fans, and I really like him. When he was playing left back, because Shaw was out injured, he was playing really well. But then he's been treated like crap, being pulled off at half time. His confidence is gone. And then this is a negative about Louis van Gaal. I think some players don't react the way he thinks they should react. I think some players need an arm round them, probably like Memphis, Darmian, Mata, and it's now impacting on their form. Whereas then you've got somebody like Rooney who's got a free pass. I'm never going to take you off. You're going to start every game. That must create resentment in the squad. That's all I can think as a human being. But it is a shame, and I think we have got a few players that we need to keep an eye on. But what I was going to ask you, Dermot, and we'll go across the whole panel with this. I know we're still quite early into the season, but what are our aspirations realistically this season? What do you think we are going to end up with? Because I personally think we will end up in a battle for third and fourth with Liverpool, Spurs, and maybe Chelsea if they don't put their ideas up.
Just the first thing about Darmian, just ask Alex. I'm pretty sure he came up against what's his name at Swansea, Moreno, who was at brilliant form at the time. So I think he has done well at the start of the season against a tricky winger.
Montero, yeah.
Montero. What did I say?
Moreno.
Montero. Yeah. I don't know who I'm thinking of. But yeah, I think you're spot on about. I think we are in a battle for third and fourth again. I'd like to think Chelsea are out of the picture, so hopefully it's just we only have to worry about. Hopefully Chelsea are out of the picture, but we only have to worry about City, Arsenal, and probably Liverpool now with Klopp. If we get to the last 16, I think the way we're playing, we're not going to top the group. I'm not confident at all about the Champions League group. We're going to get drawn against the Barcelona or something in the last 16. So last 16 Champions League, and hopefully, fingers crossed, third in the league. I don't think we're going to do much better than that.
Which actually is not much progress from last season, is it, Kev? Which is what we wanted. But yeah, I can see us getting pulled into this. I know people say you're only 4 points off the top now, and we've definitely, and I'm sure Alex will clarify this when we come to him, we definitely have got a run of games that look winnable up until Christmas when we play Chelsea and Boxing Day, which we'll definitely win. But we don't necessarily always pick up the points with Louis van Gaal against the lesser sides, and especially when you're not creating anything. But I don't want to be too downbeat, because it could all change around in the next 6 games, and we could be back up there again. But what are your thoughts on this season? I mean, realistically, do you think we're going to end up in a battle for fourth again?
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, I was looking at it and thinking I suppose at the start of the season, when I seen the squad assembled and the players that come in, I was thinking, yeah, top 4. That's part of me, obviously, wanted us, can we win the league? Again, I keep thinking about if we can click in the final third and I'm highly doubting it, only because of the tactics that are being employed at the minute. If we can get this team in the final third clicking, it doesn't need that much. We're talking a few players switching around, and the main one is Martial. If you want to accommodate Rooney, put Martial up top, Rooney in behind him. Even try playing the two of them together alongside each other and go 4-4-2. I don't know. I'm no football tactician, but like I said earlier, for me, the main change is getting Martial back into the position where he looked sensational and he looked really good. But yeah, at the beginning of the season, if you'd have said 11 games in, you're going to be 4 points off top, to be honest, I would have been really happy with that. It's just the style and the brand of football that's being played at the minute that's doing my head in. And I really hope it does change. Can it change, like you say there, now on paper, the next sort of 5 or 6 games on paper, realistically, look like we should pick points up from. But you can bet by the time we get round to playing Chelsea, they've probably sorted their act out and kicked into form, and all the other teams have took points off them at the right time. So, yeah, well.
Liverpool going there. We're not talking about Liverpool, so don't worry about that. But them winning 3-1 on Saturday, God, makes you sick. But I mean, this is what I love about this channel. It is the United Stand. It is your channel, and we do say what we think on here. But the reality is, what Kev's just said there is exactly why we do this. We are Manchester United fans, and this is what makes us great. We're 4 points off the top of the league. If somebody had offered us this at the start of the season, we probably would have took it, but we're moaning because we don't like the football. Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, they'd take this every day of the week and they'd be happy about it and they'd be rubbing their hands. Manchester United fans, we don't, because we're brought up on good football and we want to play good football. It's not necessarily about winning the league. I know some people would take the league winning 1-0, playing rubbish like this every week. Personally, I wouldn't. Everyone's opinion counts. I wouldn't. I want Manchester United to play good football. I've seen it for the last 20-odd years. I mean, the last few years under Ferguson, we shouldn't pretend that it was great. It wasn't. But we've had some great years, and Man United do have a certain way of playing, and I want to see that. And the fact that we are 4 points off the top, we could easily go on a massive run, start playing really well, and win the title. Great, hope it happens. But I think it's good that we're moaning at the moment because it's just not, we want to play good football. Feeding into you, Alex, Tim Goodwin made a great comment that West Brom haven't lost at Old Trafford since 2012, which is another depressing statistic. I really can't have another international break where we're going into it feeling down.
Yeah, this is what I tweeted out earlier, saying when we're currently on a goal drought, I can't think of anything worse than going up against a Tony Pulis team that's just going to put 10 men behind the ball the entire time. So you can just picture already, if we don't get a goal from a set piece or an early goal, we're going to be...
Fellaini will start.
Yeah, well, I might even just take that at the moment just so we can hoof it into them and get something from a corner or something, because they're always really well organised defensively, Tony Pulis teams, and if we're just passing it around and not taking shots, then we're going to be in big trouble. And last season at Old Trafford, it looked like it would be a winnable game coming up against West Brom. We lost, and then if I'm remembering rightly, away from home, wasn't it 2-2 when Blind scored in the last minute? And yeah, so it's West Brom obviously haven't been a team that we're that good at in recent times, so I am worried about it, but you never know. We could go against CSK in Moscow and completely blow them away and be brimming with confidence. I don't have much faith that we will do that, but if we don't score, if we draw with CSKA and don't score again, it's just the longer it goes on, the more pressure everyone's going to be under. And if we were to not score against CSKA, I think that might be finally the straw that breaks the camel's back, that Rooney will get dropped, because if he doesn't, I fully expect Rooney to start against CSKA. And I fully expect him to start against West Brom. But if we fire blanks again in those two games, then I think he will. I noticed after the Borough game that I've started to see now Van Hal out Twitter handles and stuff on Facebook, and then not Facebook, on Twitter. And then after the Palace game, it happened even more so. And it seems to be a lot of people are starting to hate it. And like you said, we'd have taken it points wise. But as someone tweeted the other day, it's the manner in which you lose or the manner in which you draw, and it's we just look like we're not even bothered, and we just run out of ideas.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, Mark.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, mate. Do you know what? I would have preferred losing that game yesterday against Crystal Palace if I'd have seen signs that United were getting back to some attacking kind of force. If United had lost that game yesterday and it was an off day where we'd absolutely peppered their goal and attacking wise, we had whipped wingers, attacking them at all angles, I would have quite happily got beat 1-0 yesterday than take a point from Selhurst Park, if that makes any sense to anyone.
No, it totally makes sense, and I don't think some fans get this. They'd say, "Oh, that's ridiculous." It isn't ridiculous because you know, you will lose games in football. Football is a great game because you can lose it on a refereeing decision, a bad tackle, whatever. You know, we lost to PSV because Luke Shaw, and that did impact on us. So I totally get what Kev's saying there, and it's spot on. And I said it a few weeks ago, under the David Moyes era, I was wanting Manchester United to lose. That sounds horrific, and I know people say you can't do that, but I wanted it to happen because I knew the sooner he was out of our club, the sooner things would get better, and I knew he was bad for our club. And it's about what's better for the club. Managers, players come and go. The club stays, and I'll always support the club, and that's what comes first for me. And it sort of feeds into what I was going to say there. So I'm glad Kev interrupted, because what I was going to say, me, not the United stand, me, and people who sometimes get mixed up in what we all say on this show and say it's the United stand staying it. Me personally, I think Wayne Rooney will stay in the team, and he'll outlive Louis van Gaal, because we are Manchester United. You look at the players we've got, the world-class players we've got, Martial, Mata, Herrera, Schweinsteiger, some real top talent. Rooney can't fail to score. He's absolutely abysmal, but at some point he's going to score. It could be on Tuesday night. It could be against West Brom, and everyone will go, Rooney's back. I could play up front for Manchester United at my age and still score goals, because there's that good of players behind them. And that is my concern with Rooney. He can't continue this drought forever, because it's physically impossible for it to happen. And also on Saturday, I wouldn't be surprised, Herrera played badly yesterday, Fellaini will come in, Rooney will play. That's not what I want to see in a Manchester United team. It makes me physically sick. Of course I want us to win, but you know what? If that is the future with Manchester United, with Fellaini and Rooney, I always want Manchester... Well, I'm hypocritical actually. I don't know whether I would want Manchester United to be that successful with those two in the team, because it's just not what I want. But the club comes first. But Dermot, one thing I wanted to finish on was this, and it sort of comes in with what Billy's tweet was about Louis van Gaal will finish Rooney, or Rooney will finish Louis van Gaal. I think Rooney will outlive Louis van Gaal. What's your thoughts?
Well, if it's in his contract, it definitely is. And but we obviously we know how long Van Gaal is going to stay, and if he doesn't have the guts to even drop Rooney, he's definitely not going to sell him, is he? So I think it's probably very obvious that Wayne Rooney is going to outlast Van Gaal, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So right now, I don't think I want either of them at the club.
No, I think it's certainly a bad thing. Some random dude had just left it there. I don't support United for success. I support them for exciting football. That's not happening at the moment. We're lackluster as it is. Kev, I'll come to you with that same question. Is Rooney going to outlive Louis van Gaal, or will Louis van Gaal do something that he'll outlive Rooney? Somebody said this the other day, and it's very true. It reminds me a bit of the Lampard-Gerrard problem England had. I think England could have won trophies over the last 10 years. You know, you think about Michael Carrick not being used, Scholes having to retire early because of this constant playing Gerrard and Lampard that the whole public could see they can't play together, they don't complement each other, and we wasted 10 years doing it. And I really hope United aren't going to go down that route, but it's getting a bit like that.
Well, funny you even mentioned England there. To me, England bore the life out of me, and at the minute I'd compare it to some England teams that I've seen, the way United are playing at the minute, which is really sad, very sad indeed. But will Wayne Rooney, who's going to outdo each other? I totally expect Wayne Rooney to be there longer than Louis van Gaal. Van Gaal just does not sit. I mean, for a man that come out at Bayern Munich, I think it was a game when they were getting beat at half time, and he come in and, pardon me French, he got his bollocks out basically, didn't he, on the table, and said, I've got a big set of balls, who's behind me? And apparently they went on and won that game. For me, what is going on, like you say? Is it a contract thing, or how can a player that is playing so badly and everyone can see it be the first name on the team sheet every week? You've got a player like Jesse Lingard that's United through and through. He's the games I've seen him in already, I think he's done more than probably what Rooney has. And we touch back, I know, Mark, you said, and I even thought, Rooney, he'll kick on this season, he'll find this form, but it's almost false dawns. He seems to bide his time very well. And that hat-trick against, was it Bruges? And the next day, the same papers that were questioning him the week before, Rooney's back. And it's just the same every week for me at the minute. It just looks lost. I don't think it'd do any harm by taking him out the team. But Van Gaal, is stubborn, and for me, his stubbornness is really killing Manchester United at the minute and our chances basically of winning football games, because players are getting picked, or certainly in Rooney's case, just totally for the wrong reason.
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, that Bruges hat-trick, which Rooney fans, boys, do hold up as something he did this season. My pet cat would have scored that hat-trick. It was bloody easy. But Sonny S says, I was in Sam Platts on Saturday. Sam Platts, obviously, with the Bishop's Blaze, is the two big pubs, which we were in the Bishop's Blaze, weren't we? Close to Old Trafford. He says he was there on Saturday, kind of dead, but most people were done with Louis van Gaal, especially the older guys. I mean, that's interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, obviously Kev goes to the games and gauges what happens there, but it is interesting. And what I would keep coming back to, Alex, is I think Manchester United fans that are clinging on to us that we're going to play this good football, have a look at Louis van Gaal's career for the last 5 or 6 years. I don't know why people ever thought that this would happen. It's just not. He's got to change his total philosophy. I mean, we talk about philosophies with Louis van Gaal, but he's got to change his total philosophy to start playing entertaining football. It could happen. I hope it does happen, because I'm not Louis van Gaal out, definitely Louis van Gaal in, because I just think it isn't great. We're not playing good football, but bringing a manager in at this stage is never a good idea. And you know, we'll just have to put it down as another 4th season, and if we get 4th place, we're in the Champions League again, hopefully. But I'll ask you that same question, because it's not fair if I don't. Do you think? Can you see any opportunity that Louis van Gaal might outlive Rooney?
You really depressed me when you said that Rooney will outlive Van Gaal if he does stay for the rest of his contract, but it really wouldn't surprise me. But if he is, I just think that I was worried people saying about Carlo Ancelotti coming in, but I just think he'd do the same thing and he'd just keep Rooney, because Rooney's like their marketing tool, and because he earns so much money, like I read today that he's getting a new Adidas sponsorship, Rooney is, instead of Nike, and because he's like worth so much commercially, and it absolutely flabbergasted me when he's been this bad for so long that he's getting all these new sponsorship deals, because he can't. But I guess it's just the marketability rather than actual ability. But I think he will probably outlast Van Gaal. I just, if you're going by form, he has to be dropped, but it's never going to happen, and it's just so demoralising. But I think what you said the other day was really good, because what I previously said about, I think we've plateaued with Van Gaal, and that we won't get that we won't win anything under him, and I still stick by that. We won't win anything. But I think what you said was really correct and good, was that we won't do well enough under Van Gaal to win any trophies, but we won't do bad enough to drop out of the top 4. So, like I said, we've just plateaued. It's depressing to think about, after mocking Arsenal for so many years. But now we seem to just take 4th or 3rd as an achievement. And when we spent this much money, at least Arsenal weren't actually spending like hundreds of millions every season and coming forth. The problem was they weren't spending enough, whereas we're spending hundreds of millions and just staying around the 3rd, 4th area. And if we don't get at least 3rd this season, then it's an absolute disgrace, with Chelsea falling that far off.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting. I think we will be in with a battle for 4th, but only my opinion. I think from now till Christmas we'll pick up a few points and sort of solidify our place in the top 4. And I just don't think he will drop enough points. We've got too good a squad. You know, whatever people say about United playing bad football, we've got legends like Schweinsteiger in our team that it's almost impossible to drop out the 4th place with the squad we've got. He's almost doing a great job to turn that team to play the way it is. That's the way I look at it, because it's got so much talent in there. But these players want to do something else, and it's like he's telling them to do the opposite, and it isn't great. And just finally, I just wanted to say that somebody brought this up, and it's a really good point. It's counterproductive what we're doing, because it happened with Memphis and it's happening with Martial. They're our threat in the team at the moment. Mata, when you look at his movement yesterday, he's almost a central midfielder. We do nothing down the right-hand side. So as an opposition, again, I said this on Thursday, as an ex-defender, it's easy to defend against Man United because they don't put the cross or the corners in quick, so you always set yourself. It's easy. Also, you know everything's going down the left, or to Rooney, who's ineffectual. I mean, I think Delaney or Dan were man of the match again. That's the 3rd game in a row. A centre-back against Rooney's been man of the match. And everything goes down the left, so you just double up, because we don't do anything down the right. What I wanted to see was Memphis and Martial. If you're going to play Martial wide, get Memphis on the other side, and at least makes teams stretch that they've got to play on both sides, because Mata as a left-back is easy to play against. But we could talk tactics all night. Going to be interesting. do enjoy it. I tell you what, I feel better. You know, at least I've had that rant about Fellaini. Why he's our plan B, I don't know, and hopefully everybody else who's watched and got involved feels a little bit better as well, because it's not Louis van Gaal out, like Kev says, to just be open about how you feel about the club that you love and the fact that we aren't playing good and what we want from the future. Not, you know, maybe we'll never have a triple again in our lifetime. I said at the time when I witnessed it that it was a sensational moment that I'll never forget, and maybe we'll never ever have that again, and maybe we'll never get 2008 again. But I think this team should be winning the league. I really do, and we're almost handicapping ourselves at the moment. But thanks for coming on, Dermot. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to say.
Thanks for having me on, and just say thanks for everyone who's been adding us on Snapchat during the show.
Brilliant. Kev, if there's anything else you want to say, feel free. It's been that sort of night.
Yeah, do you know one thing I'm going to touch on? Again, I'm going back to this thing of when you question and try and debate with United fans and they throw this thing back of get behind the manager and support the team. Yesterday at Sellers Park, and the United fans best away support in the league by a mile, maybe one of the best in Europe. I will say it as a United fan, but in the Premier League definitely. And one thing that I caught up anyway, and my ears pricked up, the United fans sometimes go through the whole repertoire of the players' songs where they'll sing, let's say, ex-players about Jaap Stam, Gary Neville, and they start going through them all. They didn't yesterday, but there was one song that they did sing before half-time, and I purely think the brand of football that was being played, and you're not telling me this was not aimed at Louis van Gaal. It was Paul Scholes' song, and they sang it very loud and very, very proud. And to me, as a United fan, that come across as a big moment in the season. Louis van Gaal would have heard that, and that was United fans singing, for me, in support of what Paul Scholes said. One thing I will say is, and Paul Scholes never spoke for about 25 years, and then he paid money to come out with an opinion, and he comes out with some stuff that, yeah, it could be his opinion. I think he was absolutely spot on, and it does break my heart slightly that he has to be he doesn't need the money, but he is paid to say these things, and it does break your heart, because it's Paul Scholes saying it, but absolutely not the nail on the head. Really, you want to usher him away and say, shut up, don't put this out into the press. But he said it, and for me, not the nail on the head, and he sums up what a lot of United fans are thinking, because at the end of the day, he is a Manchester United fan. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, @KevinAshford7, thanks for having me as always.
No, spot on, Kevin. Mick Whelan says there our away fans are different class, and they are. And Paul Scholes, he is like Yoda. When he says something, people listen to it because he doesn't speak very much. And I was reading something, and I'm going to come on to Alex about this, and we'll just prolong it a little bit. I was reading something today. Well, the thing I'm going to come to you about, Alex, just to give you a couple of minutes to think about it, is Louis van Gaal makes me laugh in his press conferences. Some people think it's funny. I think it's embarrassing the way he had a pop at Valdez. But the way he responds to things, the way he got that bit of paper out last season against Allardyce, and the way this week he responds in a press conference to Paul Scholes, it's embarrassing. Don't do it. It makes you look really weak, to be honest. But somebody was saying today that Scholes, there's some rumour come out in one of the papers, and it is the Mirror, so it's probably a load of rubbish, considering what they said about Martial, that Scholes is basically... he'll never have anything to do with Manchester United again because the club are appalled with him. I mean, this is why we do the United Stand. It's Manchester United fans who run that club. We put the money into it. Who are the board to arrogantly think that they could say to Paul Scholes, you'll not have anything to do with our club, because you come out and say, like Kev says, exactly what we're all thinking, that he wouldn't want to play in that team because it's boring and that we're not creating enough chances. What's wrong with that? He's nothing to do with the club. Watch Class of '92, the second one's on Thursday at 9 o'clock on BBC One. These lads, whatever people think about them, they've been Man United through and through, and they are in touch with the fans despite their money. And what Paul Scholes said this week was absolutely spot on. And if there's any truth in the club saying you've got nothing, I mean, that is basically admitting, and Louis van Gaal came out and said it this week, that Scholes shouldn't be saying that. So Scholes basically should be keeping his mouth shut and letting the pretense carry on that everything's fine on the Manchester United ship, when it clearly isn't. I applaud Paul Scholes. I'm so pleased the away fans did that, and I'm so pleased it was brought up in the after-match press conference yesterday, because this is what football should be. It's not a board, it's not corporate, it's the fans' club, and we're not happy, and they should listen to that. And I'm so pleased that Paul Scholes did that last week, because it actually voiced what the fans are thinking nationally, and it had to be listened to. But then what your thoughts are, Alex?
Yeah, I think like what you're saying, he does handle some stuff in the press conferences really stupidly. Like when they were talking about the Scholes thing, he said what he said, and then they were like, oh, but he also complimented you on how well you set up defensively, and he's like, I don't care. And originally they said like, what are your comments about Paul Scholes saying you're boring? And he's like, oh, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. But what I got disgusted at, I don't know if it's like younger generation of United fans or something that didn't watch Paul Scholes play, but I saw so many people being like, oh, Van Gaal's right, stick with Van Gaal. And there was that like poll that I put up, and I know you saw it as well, that who's the bigger United legend, Van Gaal or Scholes, and like 40% of the voters out of like 100 or 200 votes were saying Van Gaal. It's like, well, number one, Van Gaal isn't even a United legend. What's he done at United apart from make us finish fourth for one season? And then like, he's been a United manager, he's not a United legend. Scholes is one of the, if not the biggest United legend. But one thing that's interesting is that I never thought that someone said, it's like, him saying all this, who's basically one of Paul Scholes' best friends is the assistant manager. So you've got to wonder if Giggs obviously can't come out and say that we're boring, but he must be saying the same thing to Scholes, like, and then Scholes is the mouthpiece. But what you said about the Mirror saying, I don't know if that is true, but if it is true about Scholes being not being allowed, well, number one, if Giggs came back as manager, who would he want as his assistant manager? It would be Scholes 100%, and it would probably be Gary Neville and Phil Neville coming back as well. But like you said, they're United through and through. They say it because they care about the club just like we all do, and every single thing that Paul Scholes said was correct, except maybe the thing that he said that it's because Rooney isn't getting the chances why he isn't scoring, but because I think that's more to do with movement. But yeah, Scholes was 100% right. I agree.
I think you're right about Giggs. I think he would have Scholes back, because the one thing you pick up from the class of '92 and anybody who played with Scholes, apart from Rooney, is that they just hold Scholes up on a totally different level. I mean, he's an absolute legend. And in response to Alex's tweet on that night, I tweeted out and said, because there was a lot of anti-Scholes stuff and back in Louis van Gaal, and I said, what are United fans doing openly criticising Paul Scholes, who's a living legend and untouchable? And people were coming back saying, nobody's untouchable, he shouldn't slate Louis van Gaal. And you just think, I do question Man United fans sometimes when they're taking a pop at Paul Scholes over Louis van Gaal, or even just taking a pop at Paul Scholes. I mean, for me, he's just got a free pass. He's absolutely one of the best players, certainly in my lifetime, I've ever seen, and totally abused by England national team, but not by Manchester United. And when he says something like Kev says, you do listen, and I think he's spot on the money. And well, we've said our bit there. But very interestingly, Rooney and Scholes don't get on. I don't know where people think this comes from. Rooney, in his bloody documentary, best player you've ever played with, Steven Gerrard, how long did he play with Paul Scholes? I don't care what anybody says. We're not getting into this debate tonight. But Gerrard's not even in the same book as Scholes, let alone the same page. There's just the worlds apart. I know Gerrard was always a sort of Keane-esque, got his team going, but he was a Roy the Rovers player, Gerrard. He wasn't a team player. That's why they never won the league at Liverpool. That's why England never won anything. He was a selfish, good player. But Scholes, and Rooney to say that I read that as a total dig at Paul Scholes and every other player in Manchester United. And Scholes has quite openly said what Alex said about Rooney, that he thought he was past it. So, I don't know where people think Scholes and Rooney get on, was my point. But anyway, we've gone on slightly longer than I wanted to tonight. Be live straight after the match on Tuesday night against Moscow. Do join us for that. Sandeep said, how's your throat? It's much better now. Probably not after doing an hour and ranting like I didn't expect we would be. But thanks for Alex dropping in on that. The lads will be back on Thursday night for the preview of West Brom on Thursday. And I think that's about everything we need to cover. So I'm just going to go through everybody again because we've all had a bit of a rant. But cheers for coming on, Dermot.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Cheers, Kev. I don't know if there's anything else you want to just throw in.
Do you know what? I've got loads to throw in tonight. No, I mean, just touching on the Louis van Gaal thing, like Alex said about his comment that he come back at Scholes and said, sticks and stones will break my bones, names will never hurt me. To me, the one sentence that sums that up is the truth hurts. And for me, if Louis van Gaal doesn't realise that, because like I said, the away support at Selhurst Park yesterday, I think are starting to notice it, and that is creeping in. So yeah, for me, it comes down to the truth hurts, and that's Louis van Gaal's way of again blagging it and deflecting the situation. And on the thing of Rooney, if the new owners, them clowns, the Glazers, if they've got this thing in place now that if it is true they've said about Paul Scholes, saying that he will never be able to manage or come into the club as a coach because he's criticised the club. What did Wayne Rooney do back in 2009-10? Did he not criticise the club? And what did he get? A pay rise, a new contract, and yeah. So if that's the regime under the Glazers, they should have gone with Rooney years ago. So you can't make one rule for one and one for another. Find it absolutely shocking that a player like Paul Scholes, if he has, well, he's criticised the club, but if that is true, I think that's absolutely appalling because he's speaking his mind.
Yeah, I'd agree. A couple of compliments coming in here. Shane Higgs says Kev's going to need his own Sunday show soon. That's not a criticism. And Richard James says Dermot looks like a character from Father Ted, which I don't think he'll take as a criticism because it was a very, very classic comedy. And I'm sure Dermot will be appreciative of that. But I'll finish up with you, Alex, just to say good night and thank you. And if there's anything else you want to add in there.
No, that pretty much covers it. It was a really long show. My laptop's nearly out of battery. But yeah, thanks for watching, everyone, and thanks for having me on.
No, really, really have enjoyed it. And I tell you what, this is why we do the United Stand. And maybe we have ramped it up a bit tonight because it has been a bit placid for a few weeks. And I think we were all aware of that our responsibility to you is to be off the cuff and say what we think. And I think we have said that tonight. And what I would just finish on is touching a little bit on what Kev said there. What sort of Manchester United fan are you if you're having a pop at Paul Scholes? What's that all about? And another thing you get thrown is stop living in the past with Sir Alex Ferguson. It's the future now. Bollocks. I've sworn I don't like doing that, but absolute rubbish. I witnessed the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, and Manchester United is the history. It's the Busby Babes, it's Duncan Edwards, it's the 60s, it's the 70s, the 80s when it wasn't that good. That is important. That's what Manchester United is. It's really important. And Louis van Gaal can manipulate the press because the press love Rooney. But like Kev says, as soon as the away crowd, especially, but the home crowd start turning, and they are turning, no amount of publicity, no amount of money, no amount of media expert is going to turn that round. And that is the problem. You've got to stick or twist, Louis. You've got to get them playing good football because the crowd are turning, and they're not stupid. They won't turn back. And that's why I applaud Paul Scholes this week, and that's why it's encouraging that the fans are turning. Not because we want Louis van Gaal out, but because we want to play good football. That's what it's all about. We want to be excited. We want Manchester United the Manchester United way. And there's a lot of positive from tonight's show and what we're hearing around, and it's exciting. And we've let all the rant out, we've let everything down. Hopefully it's been a therapy for everybody, and we go into this week with a bit of positivity because I think Louis van Gaal, Rooney, the lot of them, they've got to turn it round. Otherwise it's going to get worse. And that'll benefit us because the voice will be heard. So thanks everybody for watching. I might be off on Tuesday with a bad throat again, but really, really enjoyed it. And thanks to all my guests. Everyone's been fantastic, and you'll have another one of these next Thursday and Sunday night. Thanks everyone. 'Tis the United Stand. 'Tis your channel.